In a picturesque English village, the sun poured its golden rays over the gardens, illuminating vibrant flowers in full bloom. Among these blossoming beauties, a young woman named Cordelia Hartley knelt, her hands deep in the rich, dark soil. With each push of her fingers into the earth, she felt a connection to the land that had sustained her family for generations. The sun warmed her back, but the dirt smudged across her cheeks and fingertips was a stark reminder of her life as a commoner, bound to the responsibilities of her family's modest estate. Before we go on, can I be real with you for a second? I pour my heart into every story I share here, and honestly, I'm just trying to reach 1,000 subscribers. It's not just a number, it's proof that stories like these still matter. If they matter to you too, hit subscribe, turn on that bell, and help me keep these tales alive. Your support means everything. Now, let's continue. Cordelia wiped her brow and took a moment to catch her breath, glancing around at the colorful petals that danced in the gentle breeze. Her heart swelled with pride as she thought of the garden they were cultivating together. It was a sanctuary, a place where her dreams could grow alongside the flowers. However, the weight of her family's expectations loomed heavily in her mind. She was the daughter of a wealthy merchant, and soon, those dreams would be overshadowed by the arrangement her father had made for her marriage. As she continued to plant, her thoughts wandered to the man she was to wed, the Duke of Ashford, a name that echoed through the halls of society with a mix of respect and disdain. Cordelia had heard tales of his charm and charisma, but also of his arrogance. Would he understand the value of hard work, or would he dismiss her as just another commoner? She sighed, pushing the troubling thoughts away as she focused once more on the task before her. Meanwhile, the Duke of Ashford, Sebastian, rode through the village on a magnificent stallion, his presence commanding attention. The villagers paused in their daily activities, their eyes drawn to the nobleman whose reputation preceded him. With his striking features and confident demeanor, he cut an impressive figure against the backdrop of the quaint village. However, as he passed, his gaze fell upon Cordelia. A smirk crept across his face as he observed her dirty hands, the contrast of her appearance stark against his finely tailored attire. "Look at that," he called out to his entourage, his voice dripping with a teasing lilt. "A lady in the dirt. Such dedication to the soil." His laughter rang out, and the others joined in, their amusement palpable. Cordelia's heart sank at his words. She felt the heat rise in her cheeks, a mixture of embarrassment and anger flooding through her. She looked up, locking eyes with the Duke, and for a moment, time stood still. There was a spark, a momentary connection that neither could ignore. Yet, the mocking laughter of his companions shattered the fragile bubble surrounding them. "Who does he think he is?" Cordelia thought, pushing back against the sting of his mockery. "Just because he wears a title does not make him superior." The villagers murmured among themselves, their eyes darting between Cordelia and the Duke, sensing the tension that hung in the air. Despite the weight of their judgment, Cordelia stood her ground, refusing to let his arrogance define her worth. As Sebastian rode away, he could not shake the image of Cordelia from his mind. Despite her dirty hands, there was something about her that intrigued him, a defiance, a spirit that seemed to challenge the very fabric of his aristocratic life. He turned back for one last glance, noting the way she resumed her work, head held high. Before we continue with Cordelia's story, if you're enjoying this tale of unexpected encounters, please hit that like button and subscribe. Now, let's see what happens next. The words lingered in the air, as if even the universe itself paused to listen. Cordelia resumed her planting, but her thoughts raced. How could she possibly marry a man who found pleasure in mocking her? Yet, she knew that this marriage was not just about her, it was about her family's future. The weight of her responsibilities pressed down on her, an invisible chain binding her to a fate she had not chosen. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows over the village, Cordelia felt the stirrings of determination within her. She would not allow the Duke's words to diminish her spirit. There was power in her hands, dirt-covered as they were, and she would wield it with pride. Sebastian, meanwhile, returned to his estate, his mind still lingering on Cordelia. He had grown accustomed to the adoration of society, but her fiery spirit was unlike anything he had encountered. He prided himself on his understanding of people, yet she had thrown him off balance. What was it about her? Later that evening, as the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, Sebastian found himself contemplating the day's events. He had a duty to fulfill, a marriage that would secure his family's legacy. Yet, the thought of Cordelia haunted him. How could he reconcile his attraction to her with the expectations of his title? In the quiet of his chambers, he ran a hand through his hair, frustration bubbling within him. He had always viewed the world through the lens of privilege, but Cordelia had opened his eyes to a different perspective, one that challenged everything he had been taught. Would he be able to see her as an equal, or would the weight of societal expectations keep him bound to the roles they were meant to play? As they both lay in their respective beds, each lost in their thoughts, the stage was set for an encounter that would change their lives forever. The morning would bring new challenges, but for now, fate had intertwined their paths, leading them toward a destiny neither of them could fully grasp. As the Duke approached the village square, he could sense the air thickening with anticipation. The townsfolk paused their daily activities, their eyes drawn to the nobleman whose reputation preceded him. With his striking features and confident demeanor, he cut an impressive figure against the backdrop of the quaint village. However, as he passed, his gaze fell upon Cordelia. A smirk crept across his face as he observed her dirty hands, the contrast of her appearance stark against his finely tailored attire. "Look at that," he called out to his entourage, his voice dripping with a teasing lilt. "A lady in the dirt. Such dedication to the soil." His laughter rang out, and the others joined in, their amusement palpable. Cordelia's heart sank at his words. She felt the heat rise in her cheeks, a mixture of embarrassment and anger flooding through her. The Duke's mockery echoed through her mind like a sharp blade. She looked up, locking eyes with him, and for a moment, time stood still. There was a spark, a momentary connection that neither could ignore. Yet, the mocking laughter of his companions shattered the fragile bubble surrounding them. Who does he think he is? Cordelia thought, pushing back against the sting of his mockery. Just because he wears a title does not make him superior. The villagers murmured among themselves, their eyes darting between Cordelia and the Duke, sensing the tension that hung in the air. Despite the weight of their judgment, she stood her ground, refusing to let his arrogance define her worth. As Sebastian rode away, he could not shake the image of Cordelia from his mind. Despite her dirty hands, there was something about her that intrigued him, a defiance, a spirit that seemed to challenge the very fabric of his aristocratic life. He turned back for one last glance, noting the way she resumed her work, head held high, stubborn as the flowers she tended. It was a curious feeling, this intrigue. He had grown up among the finest of society, surrounded by beautiful women adorned in silks and jewels, yet here was Cordelia, with her dirt-streaked cheeks and hair pulled back in a hasty bun, captivating him in a way he had never anticipated. What was it about her that stirred something deep within him? Back in her garden, Cordelia resumed her planting, but her thoughts raced. How could she possibly marry a man who found pleasure in mocking her? Yet, she knew that this marriage was not just about her, it was about her family's future. The weight of her responsibilities pressed down on her, an invisible chain binding her to a fate she had not chosen. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows over the village, Cordelia felt the stirrings of determination within her. She would not allow the Duke's words to diminish her spirit. There was power in her hands, dirt-covered as they were, and she would wield it with pride. Sebastian, meanwhile, returned to his estate, his mind still lingering on Cordelia. He had always prided himself on his understanding of people, yet she had thrown him off balance. He prided himself on his charm and wit, but with her, he felt an unfamiliar sense of vulnerability. What was it that made her so different from the others? Later that evening, as the stars began to twinkle in the night sky, Sebastian found himself contemplating the day's events. He had a duty to fulfill, a marriage that would secure his family's legacy. Yet, the thought of Cordelia haunted him. How could he reconcile his attraction to her with the expectations of his title? The laughter of his friends echoed in his ears, mixing with the image of Cordelia's defiance. He ran a hand through his hair, frustration bubbling within him. He had always viewed the world through the lens of privilege, but she had opened his eyes to a different perspective, one that challenged everything he had been taught. Would he be able to see her as an equal, or would the weight of societal expectations keep him bound to the roles they were meant to play? As they both lay in their respective beds, each lost in their thoughts, the stage was set for an encounter that would change their lives forever. The morning would bring new challenges, but for now, fate had intertwined their paths, leading them toward a destiny neither of them could fully grasp. If you are enjoying this story, please share it with someone who loves tales of unexpected romance. Turn on notifications so you never miss our next story. As the moon shone brightly in the night sky, illuminating the paths that lay ahead of both Cordelia and Sebastian, their lives were about to collide in ways neither could foresee. The village was quiet, but the storm of emotions brewed within both of them. Cordelia's heart raced as she thought of meeting the Duke again, while Sebastian's thoughts danced between duty and desire. The morning light would reveal the truth of their fates, and as the dawn approached, both were unaware of the bonds that would be tested and the revelations that would soon follow. Their separate worlds were about to converge in the most unexpected way, and neither could have anticipated the depth of feelings that would emerge from their initial encounter. The tapestry of their lives was woven with threads of ambition, resilience, and an undeniable connection that would challenge the very fabric of their existences. As dawn broke, the first rays of sunlight touched the village, breathing life into the day ahead. Little did they know, the choices they made would echo through time, teaching them the true meaning of love and respect in a world dictated by status and expectations. Cordelia hardly paced the small confines of her family's modest home, the weight of her father's words hanging heavily in the air. The late afternoon sun cast a warm glow through the window, illuminating the scattered gardening tools and freshly cut flowers that adorned their humble abode. Yet, despite the beauty surrounding her, Cordelia's heart felt anything but light. "Cordelia," her father, Mr. Hartley, began, his tone grave as he sat across from her at the worn wooden table. "You must understand the importance of your marriage to the Duke of Ashford. Our family's future depends on it." His eyes searched hers, hoping to find understanding in her gaze. She swallowed hard, the bitterness rising in her throat. "But father, how can I marry a man who openly mocks me? I am to be treated as a mere pawn in his game of status and power." Her voice trembled, heavy with indignation. "Your feelings are important, my dear, but they must take a back seat to the reality we face. The Duke's family has promised to invest in our business if this union goes through. Think of the people who depend on us." Her father's voice softened, a flicker of desperation in his eyes. Cordelia's mind raced. She was the daughter of a wealthy merchant, yet she felt more like a servant, particularly after her encounter with the Duke earlier that day. Sebastian's mocking laughter still echoed in her ears, a reminder of the stark divide between their worlds. How could she reconcile her worth with the way he had belittled her? As she looked out the window, the vibrant colors of the flowers seemed to blur, blending into a haze of frustration and uncertainty. "I did not choose this path, father. I deserve to be with someone who respects me, not someone who finds amusement in my struggles." Mr. Hartley sighed, his shoulders slumping in defeat. "I understand your feelings, Cordelia. But sometimes duty must come before desire. I need you to be strong for our family." "Strong?" she scoffed, shaking her head. "Is it strength to marry a man who sees me as unworthy? I am more than just my father's daughter or a means to an end." Yet, deep down, Cordelia knew that her father had a point. The stakes were high, and her family relied on her to make this sacrifice. The thought of her family losing everything was unbearable, but the idea of giving herself to a man who did not appreciate her was equally distressing. Meanwhile, in the grand estate of Ashford, Duke Sebastian sat in his lavish study, swirling a glass of brandy as he reflected on his encounter with Cordelia. Her dirty hands had caught his attention in a way he could not quite understand. He had scoffed at her appearance, but now he found himself drawn to the fire in her eyes, the defiance that had momentarily stripped him of his usual composure. What was it about her? In a society filled with polished manners and perfect facades, Cordelia stood out as a breath of fresh air. He had been trained to see the world through a lens of status and privilege, yet she had somehow pierced through that veil, revealing a truth he had long ignored. He leaned back in his chair, staring at the ornate ceiling as he contemplated the upcoming engagement. His mother had insisted upon this union, believing it would solidify their family's standing. Yet, Sebastian found himself questioning everything he had been taught about wealth and power. What if there was more to Cordelia than he had initially perceived? The thought unsettled him, igniting a spark of curiosity that he had not anticipated. As he prepared for the engagement ceremony, a mix of anxiety and anticipation coursed through him. He had a duty to fulfill, but he could not shake the feeling that there was something deeper at play. Would he be able to reconcile his attraction to her with the expectations of his title? The next morning dawned bright and clear, yet tension crackled in the air like static. Cordelia stood before her mirror, adjusting the simple gown she would wear to the ceremony. Her hands shook slightly as she smoothed the fabric, and she caught a glimpse of her reflection, an image of a woman caught between two worlds. "Stay strong," she whispered to herself, trying to muster the courage she needed. "You are more than what he thinks." As she made her way to the village square, each step felt heavier than the last. The townsfolk were already gathered, their whispers and curious glances following her as she approached the venue. Fear and determination battled within her, and she took a deep breath, reminding herself of her purpose. Meanwhile, Sebastian rode through the village, his heart racing as he neared the square. The faces of the villagers were a blur, and all he could focus on was the impending moment when he would see Cordelia again. The taunting laughter from earlier had faded, replaced by an unsettling awareness of her presence. As the Duke dismounted, he caught sight of Cordelia standing at the entrance, her expression resolute yet tinged with uncertainty. Their eyes locked for a brief moment, and in that instant, something unspoken passed between them, a flicker of recognition, a challenge. If you are enjoying this story, please share it with someone who loves tales of unexpected romance. Turn on notifications so you never miss our next story. The air was thick with unarticulated emotions, and as they stood on the precipice of their fates, it was clear that this engagement would not be merely a union of families but a collision of two vastly different worlds. The engagement ceremony began under a sky painted with hues of gold and crimson, the sun dipping low as if to bless the union about to unfold. Cordelia Hartley stood nervously at the entrance of the grand hall, her heart pounding against her chest like a drum. The elegant decorations surrounding her felt suffocating, a stark contrast to the raw beauty of her family's garden where she had spent countless hours tending to the flowers. The vibrant blooms were a part of her, a testament to her hard work and dedication, yet here she was, clad in an exquisite gown that felt foreign against her skin. As she stepped forward, the whispers of the gathered guests swirled around her, a chorus of curiosity and judgment. The ladies of the upper crust, adorned in their finest silks and jewels, eyed her with a mix of pity and disdain. Cordelia's hands, still bearing traces of soil from her earlier labors, felt like a mark of shame in this world of polished perfection. She could almost hear the unspoken words, the mocking laughter that echoed in her mind, reminding her of the Duke's derisive smirk from their first encounter. Sebastian, the Duke of Ashford, stood at the altar, his tall figure framed by the ornate archway. His presence commanded the room, a blend of charm and authority that had the guests captivated. Yet, Cordelia couldn't shake the memory of the way he had ridiculed her. It was a bitter reminder that even in this moment of supposed joy, his earlier contempt lingered like a shadow, darkening her heart. As she approached him, their eyes met briefly, and for a fleeting moment, it felt as if the world around them faded away. There was an intensity in his gaze that suggested a world of conflict within him, a struggle between duty and desire. Cordelia's breath caught in her throat, her heart fluttering with an unexpected surge of emotion. Despite his previous disdain, there was something about Sebastian that compelled her to look deeper, to seek the truth behind his facade. The ceremony commenced, and the officiant's voice echoed in the hall. Cordelia's mind raced as they exchanged vows, each word binding her closer to a man she barely knew. She felt the weight of the moment pressing down on her, a mixture of fear and exhilaration coursing through her veins. Would she truly be able to navigate this new life alongside a man who had shown such disdain for her background? As they spoke their vows, she sensed Sebastian's hesitation. He stumbled over a few words, his normally confident demeanor faltering as he glanced at her. It was then that she realized he too felt the strain of this union. It was not just her heart that was in turmoil. Despite the societal expectations that loomed over them, there was a flicker of something unspoken, a chance for understanding that might blossom if they were willing to look beyond their differences. The guests leaned forward, captivated by the spectacle unfolding before them, yet Cordelia felt as if they were intruding on a personal moment. She could see the curiosity in their eyes, the anticipation of a drama that had yet to unfold. Would they witness a love story, or a tragedy born of circumstance? The uncertainty gnawed at her, making her heart race faster. "You may kiss the bride," the officiant announced, and in that instant, Cordelia's breath hitched. Sebastian hesitated again, his eyes searching hers for something, approval, perhaps, or forgiveness. As he leaned in, she felt an electric charge in the air between them, a tension that spoke of their shared history, fraught with misunderstandings and judgments. The kiss was gentle, a tentative exploration rather than a passionate declaration. It was a blending of their worlds, a promise to navigate the unknown together. As their lips met, Cordelia felt a rush of emotions flooding her, fear, hope, and a flicker of longing that she had not expected. After the ceremony, the newlyweds were greeted with applause and cheers, but Cordelia felt detached from the celebration. She was still grappling with the reality of her situation, her feet grounded in two worlds that seemed irreconcilable. Surrounded by the glimmering lights and exuberant laughter, she felt like an outsider looking in, an echo of the woman who had once tended to her garden with pride. In the moments that followed, Sebastian turned to her, a thoughtful expression on his face. "Are you all right?" he asked quietly, concern etched into his features. It was a stark contrast to the mockery he had shown earlier, and Cordelia realized that there was more to him than she had first perceived. "I am fine," she replied, mustering as much strength as she could. "Just trying to make sense of it all." He nodded, his gaze penetrating as if he were trying to unravel the layers of her soul. "This is different than I expected." Cordelia chuckled softly, the absurdity of their situation breaking through her tension. "I think we can both agree on that." The Duke's mouth curved into a faint smile, a glimpse of the man beneath the title. It was a small victory, but it gave Cordelia hope that perhaps, just perhaps, they could forge a connection beyond the constraints of their social standings. As the celebration continued around them, a flicker of anticipation ignited within her. Maybe their union could become something more than just a means to an end. If they could learn to see each other for who they truly were, beyond the expectations and judgments, perhaps they could carve out a space for love to flourish. If you're loving this story, please share it with someone who appreciates tales of love and resilience. Remember to turn on notifications for our next episode. With that thought lingering in her mind, Cordelia took a deep breath, ready to embrace whatever the future held for them. After the ceremony, a palpable tension filled the air as Cordelia and Sebastian found themselves alone for the first time. The grand hall, filled with the remnants of celebration, felt both foreign and familiar. The echo of laughter and applause faded into a distant murmur, leaving only the two of them standing amid fluttering silks and floral arrangements. For a moment, time seemed to suspend as they faced one another, their differences starkly illuminated in the soft candlelight. Sebastian's gaze was intense, a mixture of confusion and curiosity swirling in his dark eyes. He opened his mouth as if to speak, then hesitated, his brow furrowing. Cordelia could sense the turmoil bubbling beneath his composed exterior. This was not the arrogant Duke who had mocked her earlier. No, this was a man grappling with uncertainty. "Are you all right?" he finally asked, his voice low, tinged with concern. It was a stark contrast to the disdain he'd displayed just hours before. The weight of his question hung in the air, heavy with implications. Cordelia took a deep breath, feeling the enormity of their situation pressing down on her. "I am fine," she replied, forcing her tone to remain steady despite the storm of emotions swirling within her. "Just trying to make sense of it all." The words felt inadequate for the chaos in her heart. How could she articulate the whirlwind of feelings, the anxiety for her family, the shame from his earlier mockery, and the flicker of something unexpected that stirred in her when he looked at her as if she were more than a commoner? Sebastian nodded, though his expression conveyed that he was still processing their new reality. "This is different than I expected," he admitted, a hint of vulnerability creeping into his voice. Cordelia's heart softened at his admission. Perhaps he was not entirely devoid of understanding after all. She let out a small laugh, the absurdity of the situation breaking through her tension. "I think we can both agree on that." The moment felt significant. In the midst of their shared confusion, laughter became a bridge, connecting their disparate worlds, if only for a fleeting moment. As they stood there, the air thick with unspoken words, Cordelia felt a spark of hope ignite within her. Maybe this union could transform into something more than a mere contract. Perhaps, with time, they could learn to see each other for who they truly were, beyond the constraints of their societal roles. Yet, even as she allowed herself to hope, she was acutely aware of the expectations that loomed over them like a dark cloud. The whispers of society, the judgmental glances, and the unrelenting pressure to conform to their roles felt suffocating. What would it take for them to break free from those constraints? Could they forge a path of their own amidst the rigid expectations of the world around them? If you're loving this story, please share it with someone who appreciates tales of love and resilience. Remember to turn on notifications for our next episode. Cordelia glanced at Sebastian, his profile illuminated by the soft glow of the candles. He appeared deep in thought, and she wondered what was going through his mind. Did he feel the same stirring of emotions that she did? Or was he merely concerned about the optics of their marriage? "Cordelia," he said suddenly, breaking the silence. "I want to apologize for my behavior earlier. I did not mean to offend you." There was sincerity in his voice, a genuine regret that made her heart race. It was a small step, but it felt monumental. "I appreciate that," she replied, her voice steadier now. "But it is not just about that moment. It is about what comes next." She searched his eyes, hoping to find a reflection of her own uncertainty. "You must understand that marrying me is not merely a duty. I will not be a trophy to display among your peers." His expression shifted, a flicker of realization crossing his features. "I do not wish for that, Cordelia. I see you. And I want to know you." The earnestness in his tone was disarming, and Cordelia felt the walls around her heart begin to crumble. "Do you truly?" she challenged gently, wanting to test the sincerity of his words. "Or is it merely the novelty of the situation that intrigues you?" Sebastian stepped closer, closing the distance between them. "I promise you, it is more than that. I want to understand what it means to be you. I want to understand your world, your struggles, and your dreams." His voice was steady, filled with a conviction that stirred something deep within her. Cordelia's breath hitched at his words, a mixture of hope and skepticism swirling within her. Could he genuinely be interested in her as a person, rather than just a title? Could he truly see past the dirt on her hands and the humble roots from which she came? Their eyes locked, and in that moment, an unspoken understanding passed between them. They were both navigating uncharted waters, and though the journey ahead was fraught with challenges, there was a glimmer of promise, an opportunity for growth, connection, and perhaps even love. "I am willing to try, Sebastian," she said finally, her resolve strengthening. "But it will take time and patience for both of us." "Then we will make the time," he replied, a hint of a smile playing on his lips. "Together." In that moment, a fragile yet beautiful bond began to form, rooted in honesty and the willingness to embrace the unknown. As they moved forward, Cordelia felt a sense of anticipation brewing within her, a belief that perhaps, against all odds, they could create a future together, one that transcended the expectations of their society. Thank you for staying with us until the very end. If this story made you smile or believe in second chances, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. At the end of this video, you'll see another beautiful story. Until next time, thank you for being here. As the days passed, the atmosphere in the grand estate became a tapestry woven with uncertainty and hope. Cordelia and Sebastian found themselves navigating a world that was both unfamiliar and daunting. Although they had united under the pressures of society, each day brought new challenges that tested their growing bond. Cordelia, with her earthy sensibilities and practical wisdom, began to teach Sebastian about the world beyond the opulence he had always known. One afternoon, while walking through the lush gardens of the estate, Cordelia pointed out various plants and flowers, sharing their uses and the ways they could sustain life. "You see, Sebastian," she explained, kneeling to dig her fingers into the rich soil, "it's not just about beauty. Each of these blooms has a purpose. They feed the bees, they bring us joy, and they remind us of the cycles of life." Sebastian watched in admiration as she spoke, her hands stained with dirt and her eyes sparkling with passion. He realized how much he had underestimated her. She was not only a woman of humble beginnings but a well of knowledge and strength. "I never knew you had such a deep connection to nature," he admitted, a newfound respect evident in his tone. "You bring a different kind of beauty to this estate, one that I've overlooked." Cordelia smiled softly, encouraged by his words. "Perhaps this place is not just for balls and lavish gatherings. It can also be a sanctuary for growth in all forms." As they walked further, their conversation shifted to the expectations that surrounded them. "You know," Cordelia began cautiously, her voice steady, "I worry about the pressures we face from society. People will always have something to say about us, about you marrying a commoner." Sebastian sighed, his brow furrowing. "I've realized that I cannot let their voices dictate what my heart feels." He paused, glancing at her with sincerity. "You are more than just a title to me, Cordelia. I want to understand you better, the woman behind the dirty hands." She looked up at him, her heart swelling with a mixture of hope and trepidation. "And I want to understand you as well, not just the Duke, but the man who made me laugh despite everything." Their shared laughter echoed in the garden, a sound that felt liberating amidst the heavy expectations of their union. It was moments like these that knitted their lives closer together, allowing them to forge a bond that transcended their initial tumultuous encounter. If you're enjoying their journey, please share this story with someone who loves tales of unexpected love. Don't forget to turn on notifications for more. However, as the weeks rolled on, the societal pressures grew heavier. Cordelia found herself grappling with the whispers of the townsfolk, who eyed her with suspicion and disdain. "What does the Duke see in her?" they would murmur, their voices laced with judgment. She felt the weight of their gazes, and it often clouded her confidence. One evening, after a particularly trying day, she confided in Sebastian. "I can't shake the feeling that they see me as an intruder in your world. I'm just a girl with dirty hands, and they won't let me forget it," she admitted, her voice quivering slightly. Sebastian took her hands in his, the warmth of his grip reassuring. "Let them talk. I see you for who you truly are, a woman of immense strength and resilience. You are not defined by the opinions of others." Cordelia looked into his eyes, searching for the truth in his words. "I want to believe that, but every glance feels like a reminder of my past." He squeezed her hands tighter. "Then let's show them, together. We can redefine what it means to be a duke and his wife. We can build our own legacy." As their connection deepened, they began to face their struggles with newfound determination. They spent evenings in the library, poring over books about the history of their estate and the lives of those who came before them. Together, they envisioned a future where they could merge their worlds, creating a space that honored both their backgrounds. Yet, lurking in the shadows were external forces that threatened to unravel their progress. A rival suitor, Lord Harrington, emerged with intentions that were anything but honorable. He was a man of wealth and influence, and he saw Cordelia as a prize to be won rather than a partner to be cherished. His advances were subtle at first, flattering words whispered at social gatherings, lingering gazes that made her skin crawl. One fateful evening at a ball, Cordelia stood at the edge of the dance floor, feeling the weight of the world on her shoulders. The grandeur of the occasion felt stifling, and she longed for the freedom of the garden. Sebastian was engaged in conversation with some influential guests, leaving her to fend off Lord Harrington's persistent attempts to draw her into his orbit. "Why settle for a life of toil, my dear?" he purred, his charm as slick as oil. "You could have everything you desire if you chose to align yourself with the right man." Cordelia felt her stomach churn. "And what would that require of me?" she countered, her voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "Only your loyalty and a promise to elevate your status. I could offer you a life filled with luxury, far removed from the dirt beneath your nails," he said, smirking with an arrogance that made her skin crawl. "No amount of luxury can change who I am," she replied defiantly, her heart racing. She turned, looking for Sebastian, hoping he would come to her side. As if sensing her distress, he appeared just in time, his expression darkening when he saw Lord Harrington's proximity to Cordelia. "Is everything all right?" he asked, stepping protectively in front of her. "Just a friendly conversation, Your Grace," Harrington sneered, his eyes glinting with malice. "Friendly or not, I would appreciate it if you would keep your distance from my fiancée," Sebastian replied, his voice low and firm. The tension in the air crackled as Lord Harrington stepped back, but the challenge in his eyes remained. "We'll see how long she stays by your side, Duke. The world is full of options, and she might just find a more appealing one." As he walked away, Cordelia felt a shiver run down her spine. "What does he mean by that?" she asked, her voice trembling. Sebastian turned to her, his expression darkening. "It means we need to stay united, Cordelia. We cannot let anyone come between us, especially not someone like him." With a newfound determination, they faced the evening together, knowing that their bond was their greatest strength against the challenges that lay ahead. Thank you for staying with us until the very end. If this story made you smile or believe in second chances, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. At the end of this video, you'll see another beautiful story. Until next time, thank you for being here. As the sun began to set, casting a golden hue over the estate, Cordelia stood on the balcony of her new home, gazing out at the sprawling gardens that stretched before her. The vibrant colors of the flowers reminded her of the very gardens she had tended while living as a commoner. Each blossom seemed to whisper stories of her past, the dirt under her nails, the laughter of her family, and the sense of freedom she once cherished. Yet today, she felt a mix of apprehension and hope in her heart. Sebastian, the Duke of Ashford, approached her from behind, his presence commanding yet comforting. "You seem lost in thought," he remarked, leaning against the railing beside her. The tension that had once filled the air between them was slowly dissipating, replaced by a burgeoning connection that neither of them had anticipated. "I was reflecting on how much has changed in such a short time," Cordelia replied, her voice contemplative. "Just days ago, I was planting flowers with my hands deep in the earth, and now I find myself in a world so foreign to me." Sebastian turned to face her, his gaze intense. "You are not just the woman with dirty hands, Cordelia. You are the woman I chose to marry. You bring a strength to our union that I never knew I needed." His words hung in the air, heavy with sincerity, and Cordelia felt a warmth bloom within her. "Your Grace, she began, but he interrupted her gently. "Please, call me Sebastian. We are past titles now, aren't we?" His tone was soft, inviting her to let down her guard. "I want us to be honest with each other. I want you to know that your past doesn't define you in my eyes." Cordelia smiled, her heart fluttering at his openness. "I wish I could feel as confident as you seem to be about this union. I still fear that I am not enough for you, not what you deserve." Sebastian shook his head, a determined look on his face. "You are more than enough. You have taught me so much about resilience and the beauty of hard work. You've opened my eyes to the world beyond the walls of nobility." As they stood together, the sun dipping below the horizon, a shadow fell across the garden, a figure emerging from the path that led toward the estate. It was Lord Harrington, the rival suitor who had made his intentions toward Cordelia all too clear. The tension in the air thickened as Sebastian's demeanor shifted, recognizing the threat that loomed just beyond their moment of intimacy. "Ah, Cordelia, what a lovely evening," Harrington called out, his voice dripping with insincerity. "I see you've successfully captured the attention of the Duke. But I must wonder, how long can you hold it?" Sebastian stepped protectively in front of Cordelia, his expression fierce. "You have no business here, Harrington. Your attempts to undermine our marriage will not be tolerated." "Oh, but dear Duke," Harrington replied, his tone mocking. "I merely wish to remind Cordelia of the life she might have had, one filled with wealth and privilege, far beyond what a mere commoner could ever hope to offer." Cordelia felt a surge of anger at the insinuation. "I am not a mere commoner, Lord Harrington. I am the heir to a fortune, and I have chosen to be with Sebastian because he sees me for who I truly am." Sebastian glanced at her, surprise flickering in his eyes, but he quickly masked it with pride. "Well said, my lady. You are not just a title or a possession to be won. You are my partner, and I will not allow anyone to diminish that." Harrington's face twisted in frustration, his composure cracking. "You think this is the end of it? There are those who will not accept this union. You may find that being the Duke's wife comes with more challenges than you are prepared for." With that, he turned on his heel and strode away, leaving an electrifying silence in his wake. Cordelia stood frozen, the weight of Harrington's words pressing down on her. Would their love truly withstand the scrutiny of society? Sebastian, sensing her inner turmoil, placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Let him speak. We will face whatever comes our way together. You are not alone anymore." Cordelia turned to him, her resolve strengthening. "I will not let him or anyone else dictate my worth. Our love is built on more than societal expectations, it is built on respect and understanding." Sebastian smiled, admiration shining in his eyes. "Then we will fight for it, Cordelia. Together, we can redefine what it means to be a duke and his wife. We will forge our own path, one that honors both of our histories." As night fell, they stood united, gazing at the stars that began to twinkle in the clear sky above. The challenges ahead were daunting, but they had each other, and that was a promise of hope. Thank you for being part of this journey. If you enjoyed the story, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts below. We appreciate your support.